Well, thanks very much. We've looked forward to being here. We panicked about 10 minutes ago because we drove up, came off the Causeway Approach, came around the building, decided, I've been here before, of course, decided park right out there, came to the front door, door 1 locked, door 2 locked, door 3 doesn't even have a handle. And I said, do you think we have gotten the wrong date? Wrong time. I said I was almost certain August 10th, 10 o'clock. And, oh me. So anyway, we're sitting there going through, doing this. I keep something on speaking engagements, and Martha had something from Tina, and so we had it 10 o'clock. So then I called, and we finally found it. But you kind of have to be doing what I do. I say this just to put you on notice. I'm not a writer. I am a pastor, a minister who writes. And so there's kind of a difference, at least for me, about the way that works. But so I'm always speaking and going to places and seeing people. And the ongoing nightmare that I have would be like this morning, that you met at 8 o'clock. And I showed up at 10 o'clock. And worse nightmares than that, like having nothing to say when you come, and standing up in front of a group of people and having nothing to say. Well, I'm glad to be here. I love questions, and so if you decide you have questions in the middle of my little presentation, feel free. That's fine with me. And Marlene, Tina wanted me to talk about blogging, so I got to start back at the beginning. I've got 4 little parts to this. The first one is the value of social media, and by that I include blogging with all of the other things: Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and all of those areas. Here's what I read this week. 72% of online Americans, the offline Americans are a very small percent, as you know, but 72% of online Americans use social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. So that's pretty good. That's a lot of folks. 72% of almost 300 million people. 89% of those who are 18 to 29. Is what we would have expected. They use it in different ways, but certainly it's the case. The social media adoption rate for those over 65 has gone up 3 times in the last 4 years. So senior adults, I suppose that's what 65-year-olds are adopting social media amazingly. And my guess is most of you are on Facebook. There are a lot of grandparents on Facebook posting pictures of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So it's interesting how that works out. Somebody said that Facebook has become America's front porch. You may not know your neighbors, but you know your Facebook friends. And you socialize in that way. Here's the way I always look at things. As a pastor, I always wish things were different. There's an ideal there, and you always wish things were different. But as a pastor, I have to remember things are not different. And you have to deal with the world as it is, not like it would be nice to be. And so we deal with that. And so Facebook has become America's front porch, and it's interesting about that. The other thing that I've noticed is that people who will connect with you on a blog will not connect in any other way. I say that because I have people who read my blogs comment who don't really go out of their way to see me at church. I don't know, are they shy, or do they just connect with people differently than I would? Again, it really doesn't matter why That's the way it is. It's the point that we can connect with people from that. Martha is brand new to blogging, about 6 weeks, and I've been blogging about 2 years. And so Martha has this long paragraph comment from somebody who is extremely shy in our church, says nothing, and but went on and on and on by this means. So for someone like me, pastor, blogging is another tool. It's not the tool, it's another tool. And the other thing that I've learned in all of this, as you do your writing, obviously we want to get our writing out. We want somebody to read it. We want another person to read it. And this becomes another tool to get your writing out, to get your name out, to get connected with people. So let me tell you how I started blogging. It's a long story, but I think I can get through it kind of fast. It's a long story because it's over a number of years. As I said, I'm not a writer. I started writing because I went to New Orleans Seminary, finished up with a master's degree, stayed on 3 more years and got a Doctor of Theology. A Doctor of Theology degree requires you write a dissertation. Has to be on original research and has to contribute something. I'm not sure how much my dissertation ever contributed to anybody beyond me, but that's the idea. So I started writing in that way, and of course had to write in college, in the master's program, and certainly in the doctoral program. So I started writing that way, but I still never thought of myself as a writer. But here is how I discern the will of God and how God is directing me in life. I take the next step. And I normally know what the next step is, but I never know what the second step is. And let me give you an example. Some of you know First Baptist Covington is at the intersection of Highway 1085 and Highway 21, north of Target, south of St. Tammany Hospital. It is, there's a sign now. I don't know if it used to have that. I don't know why it got put up the way it did. But the sign, of course, names 1085 by how those of us who have lived in St. Tammany a long time know it. It's Bootlegger Road, which we had some people in the church who said, you know, maybe we ought to petition and get that name changed. And I said, listen, you can't buy publicity like the Baptist on Bootlegger Road. I mean, it is just too good. And so we moved there in 2001. We started talking about that in 1997. And there were people who wanted to know what are the 10 steps to get us from here to here. And what they meant was, what are the 10 steps? We get here, and then what's it going to look like in 2013? And I have to say, I don't work that way. I just want to follow the next step and see where God is leading us one step at a time. So that's the way I make almost all decisions in my life. I've learned through the years, when you're young, you think the only way God can work is the way He works in your life. After a while, you get to realize, no, God is a little bigger than I am. And He can work in other people's lives in different ways. Well, the way He works in my life is that I simply take the next step. My writing started basically outside of the academic part when I went to the Superior Avenue Baptist Church in Bogalusa. That was 1976. And they had a weekly bulletin. They mailed it out to everybody, and somehow I started writing an article on the front page, and I wrote it every week, and it got mailed out. I'm guessing it was 200 words, but since I didn't have a computer to put it on in those days, I have no idea. The only way you could count the words was to do it like this. So I didn't want to do that, but I'm thinking it was about 200 words. But I got into the habit of blogging before there was a blog, and started writing week by week. It was a tremendous discipline. Anytime somebody says, how do I get into writing? I say, sit down in front of a computer, Word would be well, and start writing, start typing. And it's amazing, all of us know about that, how I have nothing to say. What am I going to say today? I don't know where this is going to go. And you sit down, think about it. I think the way we ought to do it, pray about it. God, what would you have me to write today? What does somebody need to hear? And you do it in that way. When I came, then I left Bogalusa. I went to New Orleans Seminary. I stayed there a long time as professor. I can't even remember now, 1978 to 1995, 17 years. And so I stayed there and did the kind of writing that I do. I wrote almost all of these things during that time. Here's something you would not want to read. This is a Hebrew grammar book. And so I've done that, and I did most of that during that time. When I came to First Baptist Covington, I took up my former practice. By the way, I was professor at seminary and pastor of the church from 89 to 95. That's how that worked. So I named my column Lanyap, and because I really saw it that way, just a little something extra. Something that I needed to say but didn't have the time to say in a sermon, or it didn't fit a sermon, or those kind of things. So I took it that way, and so I would write that. I still write that every week. 4 years ago, one of our staff members said, Waylon, you ought to write a weekly email that would go out to the entire church. So I thought about it and prayed about it, considered it, and started doing that. That became the beginning of my blog. So then I start thinking about it. It was amazing how many people it connected with, again, who would read, but maybe didn't have other connections. So that got me started, and I called that Life Apps, and I still send it out. It goes out every Monday. It basically takes the sermon I did on Sunday and kind of takes it off into a different area and moves it in that direction. From that, 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, I started my blog. And this may scare you about a blog. I don't know if it does or not. I started off, I think, 3 days a week. I quickly went to 5 days a week, and now I do it 7 days a week. But it is very brief. It's 300 to 500 words. It is filled up with my random thoughts that won't fit in other areas. I wish I could say this to somebody. Now I can say it to somebody and do it that way. So that's how I started blogging and got started with that. Number 3 is going to sound a little bit, I think, strange. It certainly is strange for me because this is not who I am. As a writer, you have to market, and you have to market. You have to get it out. We're always wishing that somebody would say, "You're the next John Grisham." And remember John Grisham. When we all read John Grisham, we read what was it, Pelican Brief? And it went viral, as we would say today. And then, who knew? He had another book, probably that people know as well, that he had written first, that nobody read, A Time to Kill. And it had already been published, and probably 2,000 people had read it, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea. It wasn't anything anybody knew, and then he was discovered. But he had to get that first book out there to be discovered. We're always wishing somebody would pick us or choose us. But somewhere in there, we have to choose ourselves or pick ourselves. If you don't know the name Seth Godin, Godin, he is a good person to read. He's the one who said you have to pick yourself. And here's the little example he gave. He said, when we were playing sports, I don't know about you girls, but we guys know this. When we were playing on the playground and they chose up teams, you always wanted to be chosen first, and you wanted to be chosen by the most popular group. But every one of us had, no, I don't know, maybe not. But I have been the one who was the youngest and the smallest and the least and chosen last. You can go on this team. You know, you can be the extra over here. And what Seth Godin says is we don't have to, we have to, in a sense, choose ourselves. Now, I think there's a better way to do it than a lot of people do it. Because of my situation, I'm on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are my three. I'm connected with Instagram, but I only got so much time to do this stuff. So I do that, but I never ask anybody, I never follow somebody on Twitter so hoping they will follow me back. But I'm the pastor of a church. I think it's a different situation. And I never ask to be anybody's friend on Facebook, but I got 1,200 friends on Facebook. Because they know me, and then you know all of these connections all over the place. So I think we have to do that and find the subtle, good ways to get our stuff out. One thing they say on blogs is find a blog where you would like to write and send them something. I would like to do a guest blog. It's free. You can use it. If you find it helpful, think it would speak to your people, then you can do a guest blog. I have a friend who now is, I think she's writing her third novel. She has followed this little plan, a little more in depth than I've given you, and she is doing great. And did the whole thing, goes social media, connected with it, comments on Twitter and Facebook, all of those kind of things, mostly Twitter, and does the guest blogs, and she's gotten to be well known, and each novel has sold more than the previous one. That's pretty good. Yes, Pam?
What,
Pat.
Pam.
Okay.
What program like WordPress is a blogging thing, what program do you use, or what program do you recommend for those of us that was user-friendly to be a blogger?
We both use WordPress.
You do. I have a friend that uses that, and boy, he blogs all the time. It's good.
The largest bloggers use WordPress. Michael Hyatt is a great blog.
Who?
Michael Hyatt.
And he's on there.
Yes, he uses WordPress and promotes it greatly. And he is one of those people with huge following. In the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. COPP, he's the number one rescuer in the world, disabled now after 911, but he uses it. And I've had the privilege of sharing my faith with him, and he listens.
The other thing about WordPress, it's free.
Right.
Now, there is a cost to blogging and to getting into it, but it's not prohibitive.
How do you get into WordPress?
You go to WordPress.
Just teach you how to get into it.
Either .com or .net, and I can't tell you which one, but one or the other. You can Google WordPress and you will find that.
Can those blogs you do in WordPress be sent to someone else? Is that, or do you just blog them in WordPress? You come and read it. That's right.
Yes, you blog it in WordPress, but I am very simple. Marlene said simple. I'm simple. I just cut and paste anything off my blog and send it to somebody else.
Is that right?
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I'm simple too.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried blogging, but I'm new at this, and I was doing so many other things, I got frustrated, so I couldn't wait to kind of ask you some just really simple questions.
I suggest that
and
you.
Doug's already told me WordPress, so I've been stubborn.
I would suggest that you do WordPress, that you get it set up, and you do everything simple, and then you keep adding to it. There's my next step.
One step.
That's
Okay.
right.
Right. This has been the hardest thing for me, the blogging. So I've done everything else.
Now, the other thing that you want to do is you surely want to have a friend who knows a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, Doug would help me.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And if you do that, somebody you can, that doesn't have to do it for you, but you send an email to that says, here's where I am, what do I do? And of course, WordPress has frequently asked questions.
Right. Okay, well, he's coming in. Well, that was an extra prayer for me. He's
They
coming
also,
soon.
they have a tutorial
Yeah.
that you can go through. They have I believe they have a video tutorial, but they also have one simply that has all of these different questions, and you can go through it one at a time and work through those things. And you know what I would do, I'd take one or two or three, just an hour at a time, and go through those areas. And I find that very helpful.
So if I wrote a blog on WordPress, I could cut and paste and put it onto one of my bariatric sites where I help patients.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. What an easy question. Thank you. Most of them are.
You have to get the simple part right.
Most of them are very hard. Yes. Number 4 is how blogging helps my ministry. It expands it, obviously. I have people in all 50 states and 30, 40, 50 countries. I wonder about some of those people, but I do that. I have people who work with Chevron, Shell, who work out of the country and keep up with the church and with me by the blog. You never would think of something like that as being a help. So that's helped. It's helped me become more of a pastor to the community because I have a lot of people on the blog from here who don't go to my church. It helps my discipline. There's a blog waiting every day. So that kind of keeps you moving and thinking in advance. I've said this otherwise, it gives me an avenue for my random or stray thoughts. And if somebody says, where did you ever come up with that? Well, connect the dots and get to all of those places. The other thing that it does is it keeps me reading. And here's what I believe. A writer has to read. And you have to read a lot, and you have to read a lot of different things. And that helps me. Okay, I'm ready for questions.
I wanted to ask one thing. I wanted you to talk about, you mentioned your discipline, but what, I know probably the obvious answer, but what really keeps you going? I've been to Israel with both of you, and it just amazes me that I thought I'd get up really early, maybe to watch a sunrise over Galilee or something like that. But if you get up early and you went down in the lobby, there was Waylon on his laptop. And I read your blog 2 days ago, and I never did catch what time it was written. There it was, 5 a.m., and I went, whoa, he just blows my mind, So what, besides the excitement and feeling that you have a purpose, sometimes you must get tired, like, do I want to do another one tomorrow? I mean, what helps your discipline to continue?
Well, one thing is the discipline is the fact that I write the Life app every Monday. I write the Lanyap for every Sunday. I've also, my blog is very focused. It's for pastors, and it's about Christian living. I think I do mostly Christian living, but I do, you've seen the one category, stories worth telling. And I do that because a pastor always needs an analogy, a story, a something. And so I try to put those in, and generally what I do is I write on the blog after I've told them on Sunday. Every now and then I'll do that vice versa, and it doesn't bother me. And actually it makes the people who've already read it, they're happy about it for whatever reason, I don't know why, that they got it first, that kind of thing. But I do that for pastors. And so what I do, it all comes together. And I suppose in some sense what I do is unique about that. This is a great question about discipline, of how we get it and how we do it, having to do it. Expectations, yeah, are big. And the biggest expectations are the ones I have for myself, so that helps. And so what I do, I really do, I read, I think, tear stuff out, copy it, and put it, and one day I will use this, and that kind of thing. The other thing I do, every Friday, my blog is quotations. And what I've done then is just everything I've read during the week that clicked with me, I put mainly for pastors, but other people enjoy it as well. And so I just try to do that, but there are times I come in at 9 o'clock at night and say I got to write my blog. And you know, that's tough. That's tough.
You don't ever, I mean, because I know you have a fairly large church there, and then you're writing all this stuff Sundays a week, and you're preaching sermons a couple of times a week, right? You don't ever get overwhelmed with all this? You don't ever feel just overwhelmed with all of the demands on your personal life?
No, I don't.
That's interesting. How do you think that doesn't happen?
I think the biggest thing for me is to get up every morning and practice the presence of God. And what I do is our den is set up this way. Marlene's heard this story. My chair's over here, Martha's chair's over here, and there's this table that gets in my way right here. But no, I'm happy with the table. But anyway, it's right there. Yeah, I know it's staying, and I'm happy with it. And it's good. It's good. So, and I try to start the day with God. And I try to start the day, my joke is, I'm going to have a cup of coffee and offer God a cup of coffee. And, which he usually turns me down on. And the point, I like humor. I like to laugh. I like for other people to laugh. I think it helps us all. So I don't in any means use that about God in a blasphemous way or a disrespectful way. I just say it because I want people to kind of see it and think about it. So I try to start the day, I read Scripture, and I pray. And I often pray through my calendar. On a normal day, I'm seeing 3 to half dozen people by appointment, and then after that, other people as well. And so I'll just pray through that. Here is Martha coming today, and I don't know what she's coming about. And so God, please help me, give me wisdom to know what to say, how to relate to her, how to do whatever I need to do to help her. And the real truth is, if I do that, I'm ready for whatever's going to happen in the day. Now, I wish I had started doing that 30 years ago, because that would have been much better. But I'm happy that I started doing it however many years ago that I did, because that really helps me. And then the other thing, when you pray through your calendar, I preach every weekend, 4 times the weekend. I teach a Tuesday men's Bible study on becoming a man of influence, breakfast on that. And I teach verse by verse from whatever I picked on Wednesday nights to a group of people. And that's my normal preparation, those 3 things. So what I'm always doing is I'm praying about the preparation as well. And so that really helps me. And then I have a lot of people who do a lot of things to help me as well, and other pastors and things of that nature. So I am not overwhelmed with that. And the church, to their credit, the church kind of helped me move from thinking I've got to do everything. They did that a long time before I did that. Because, that's what a pastor does. He thinks I've got to do everything. And so they moved me beyond that, and now I've gotten pretty comfortable with it myself.
I have 2 questions.
Okay.
And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, I don't know much about blogging. Okay. In a blog, do people respond to you?
Yes.
Okay, so you're writing these things and then they're gonna just respond to them?
Correct.
Okay, so if I was going to write asked to be a guest person to write articles I would wanna go to places that are gonna reach my target market then, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd search for that and then just go on the blog and put a little comment? That's all I would have to do?
Well, you mean about being, yes.
Yeah, writing an article? Yeah.
No, the way I would do it, I would get the personal email. Say, I've been reading your blog. I find it very helpful. Here's what the marketers would say. The marketers would say, let's use Michael Hyatt, who I mentioned. You would go on there and read his blog, and you would comment appropriately from time to time about that. So he sees your name. He knows about that. He keeps up with it. So then, when you think you have something that fits his blog, then you say, I would love to do a guest blog for you. And here's what I would write on. If you'd like to see an example of my writing, here's where you can go, or I'll be glad to write the blog and then send it.
Oh, okay, good, okay. I'm also in the process of doing an article, asking for an article to go in the Changing Times magazine. So that's exactly, I'm kind of like, oh, this is all new, what am I supposed to write? And I'm all nervous, what should I include in it? I want it to be good enough so that he'll say yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So I should probably include some articles I have done in the past, right? Would that help?
I think what I would do is say, if you would, I have articles I could send you.
Okay.
Because he doesn't want to read that until he's ready to read it.
Okay.
You know how we are.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering, the reason I was gonna do that, because he really doesn't know me.
Right.
So
Yep.
in that instance, I thought maybe if
I
I
read-
included one or so, he could look at it.
As I started blogging and went on Twitter, I started following all these people. Seth Godin, Jeff Goins, Goins. He chose himself and now writes, publishes online. He's helpful for writing. So I went to all of those kind of sites for help and find tremendous help.
What's his first name, I'm sorry?
Jeff,
Oh, Jeff.
And how do you spell his last name?
Goins. And I find him very helpful. And that's basically what he did. I wanted to be a writer, and I am one. And he identifies, what is a writer? A person who writes. That's all. Yeah, that's right. So we're all writers. And it doesn't mean that we're selling 1 million copies, but we're all writers, yeah.
Well, you kind of have, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add something to that. Deb Burst, who I think a lot of you know in here probably, was blogging with Ann Rice. And Ann Rice actually responds if you on her blog. If you comment, you can get into a fascinating conversation with her. And Deb did that for several weeks until, as Pastor said, Ann Rice kind of got to know who Deb was. And then Deb, who was writing a book, asked her to write the foreword to her book, and she said, okay.
Oh, wow.
So she has a foreword to her book by Ann Rice. And
Just
it's
from the
because
blogging.
of what you just said. By that, they get to know you first. Yeah, get to know you first.
Okay, thank you.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And generally, that's what everybody says about how you do these things. That's
You
the
become a friend, an online friend.
Yep.
But you have a built-in audience.
Yes, I do.
And my web designer, I'm a children's book author. My web designer's been telling me to do a blog since we started all this in 2009. And I said, no, I don't want to do a blog. No, I don't want to do a blog. Because my point is, who's going to read this? First of all, it's a lot of work to me to have to discipline myself to sit down and do that. And I'm running the business and marketing and going to schools and doing presentation for libraries and schools. So to me, it's just another thing that I got to do that's too overwhelming for me. Plus, I didn't know who was going to read that. So I've not pursued that. But I'm at the point right now where I cannot continue to speak and talk because I have vocal strain. So, God's shutting my mouth, which is very, very difficult.
Maybe he's
Singing
telling
and
you to
dancing
do a
since I
blog
was
then.
3.
So, maybe he's telling you to do a blog, Linda.
I think he's
So
telling you to
that-
start blogging.
Start
I
blogging
think
now.
that's
That's what he's telling you.
The next step.
You
Start blogging
start
in the
blogging.
voice of your character.
That's right. Let it all out,
Yeah.
Linda. Let it
Well, I'm
all
just
out.
saying, if you didn't have a built-in audience, where would these people come from that would be going to your blog?
Well, it is an interesting thing. At the end of my blog, I say, if you find this helpful, please send it to someone else. And if you would like to receive my blog, you can subscribe at the top of the page. They don't have to read that, they don't have to subscribe, and they don't have to send it. But it's amazing how often people will send it all over the place. I, maybe foolishly, I wrote something about atheism. You would just be shocked to know how many atheists read a Christian blog. Because I was excoriated about that. Anyway, it was funny. It was kind of funny. And so the thing that you must remember about blogging is everything is public. You are not writing to an audience. You are writing to the world. And whatever you put in writing is there. And it is there forever. So we want to pray about it, think about it, consider it, ask your wife about it. What do you think about this? Because it's going to be there. And that's very important to
And
remember.
it stays out there forever, doesn't it?
Yes. I hope a lot of my stuff stays out there forever.
Right.
And others of it, maybe it'll be gone. Yeah.
Let me just add, let me say one thing real quick. There's some type of search engine, I don't know which ones use what kind, but if you've ever looked anything up on Google, a subject, you'll see all of a sudden people's blogs pull up as part of that.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah,
There's a
noticed
thing
that.
on the bottom of any blog, and it's called tags or subjects on
Tags are
WordPress.
really important.
On WordPress, it's called tags, and then they also have it as subjects, and you'll be uncategorized, but you can add your own topics. But under, like for myself, I have a blog. I have not written on it for some time because I moved and life has just been, I can't even find anything yet. It took me an hour this morning to find my book I write my notes in. So, but down there under my tags, what I'm writing about, because I'm trying to gain another audience, if it's about my book on deafness, I have deaf, I have children, for you, you're doing like children. If you've written about a pelican, you put children, pelican, Louisiana, educational, library, speaking, teaching. You put down every conceivable topic that you think somebody might be searching about to find you.
Is that what a tag is?
Yes.
Okay,
Plus
that's a
your
tag.
name, I have my full name, Rebecca Willman Gernon, I have Rebecca Willman, I have Rebecca Gernon, I have my book title, I have humor, I have, I write about my family, so I have code names for them. I put in all these names on your tag. Then when somebody like Marlene says, they're going on and they want to know about a book about a pelican, they can put in book about pelican, and you may not be the top one, but you'll show up in that list someplace. And I have about 30 followers only on my blog, but I haven't been consistent with it. And there are people who have searched for whatever I have written about. And so if you don't put tags on your blog, you might as well write it on a piece of paper and put it outside. about as many readers as you'll get as to wherever it blows to. So it's really important to put on your tags.
And in WordPress, that's
It's
very
really easy.
easy.
It's easy.
Yes.
Super easy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The man that designed my website must have done something right, because I've managed to write 3 blogs last year, and they are showing up. I went on Google and I went, what's that thing doing on there? One of 3 blogs, and so now I'm just have a hard time understanding. So this is the next thing for me too, Linda, some blogging.
And one thing I wanted to mention to you, Donna, I don't know, did you go to Tuscaloosa with us this year? Okay, well, that's when we get, to meet agents, and this year we met Bruce Barber again, and he mentioned Michael Hyatt too. Bruce has Barber Publishing, and he's related to the, Moody's.
He read the story, I wrote
Oh,
about
okay.
this one.
But I had a personal appointment with him, and nowadays publishers want you to help, like Waylon said, to push the book. And one of the first things he said was, do you blog? Because they want, if you have followers that, all of a sudden you go on and say you write a book, those people would be interested in buying, that helps the publisher. So nowadays, all these forms of social media are important, that's why I want to Waylon to do, because
Yeah, I
blogging is the
appreciate
latest.
Publishers, when you go to a publisher today with a new book proposal, they want to know how many Twitter followers you have, they want to know if you have a blog and how many followers, they want Facebook, how many friends do you have, they want all these statistics. Book clubs online, Goodreads, how many reviews do you have?
Well, if I can learn my smartphone, I can learn blogging.
Yeah, that's
Really. Blogging's easier than a smartphone.
Yes.
I think I know less than what she professes. Is blog another thing like Facebook or Twitter, or where is it?
The blog is your personal, and it's out in the cloud somewhere. It's your personal site from which you write. I think everybody ought to have a specific audience, and for mine, pastoral leadership and Christian living.
You
And
have your own website?
yes, you
You
do.
have to have a website first, and then your blog is inside that website,
No,
right?
It's kind of like writing an article.
Is it two
Just
different
an
things?
online
That's what I wanted to
venue,
know.
so it's different
'Cause I-
than.
You don't have to have a website on WordPress to blog.
But you can have
Oh,
one, but you don't have to have.
I mean, you can make a static first page.
So I can have a blog without a website, that's.
You
fine.
could, but you can make a static first page
Okay,
and
yeah.
then put the blog as second, which I've done with mine. So it kind of looks like a website, even though it's not really, it's
Okay.
a blog.
Okay.
But you can have a website is just strictly, everything is yours that you put up. Like
Okay.
if you go to bestbuy.com, that's their website. You can have
Right,
your
I
name
understand.
and put all your
I
stuff.
think all you
But
have
a
to do is.
blog is sort of like putting an ad in a newspaper. It's totally different. It's like doing, like people who rant on Facebook and put up all of this rot forever, they should have a blog and put that over there on their blog if they want to do speechification, you need to get a blog. And that's where you can do your speechifying, over there on your blog.
Tell them how to find your blog, so she can get an idea of it.
Oh, WaylonBailey.com. Martha's, MarthaBailey.com.